Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the wonderful youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. What's shaking in Florida today, my friend?
Not much. A little rain. I think today was my final day, at least for this academic year, to write about high school sports going on in Wisconsin. I do that remotely still because when I lived in Wisconsin, I had the job, certainly a part-time job, but I still do that remotely in the state of Florida. But I think today was my final day of basically writing about sports and sending it off to my editors via email across the country because it's summertime is approaching and school is done. So the sports are done up until August. And that's kind of the same deal, not necessarily exactly with college, but like collegiate school. I mean, in college, kids are basically out. It's summertime. In college, it's June. So everyone's done with school. On the sports, I know the NCAA, like track and field championships, I believe, were going on this past weekend, whatever it was. Basically, a lot of sports are concluding. And baseball and softball are even concluding. You think about professional sports, and it's like, okay, we got nothing right now except baseball. You can look ahead to, the NBA draft and stuff like that, but it's truly solely baseball season now. When it comes to this country, there's also the World Cup, Troy, which we could talk about, but that's not exactly Big Ten related. So we'll keep it off this show because that's really not Big Ten related. I mean. Yeah. We could try to relate Big Ten soccer to it, but it's a different show in itself. Just to let the listeners know, though, we are going to be doing a World Cup preview. Yeah, one of these days. I'm not sure if the Grueling Truth is going to pick it up. They may. I'll send it over to Coach Goodpaster and say, hey, here you go. If not, you can find us on Twitter at TroyRobert967, at Kid Cunny, or the best place to find any of our shows, youngster, is our show handle, at Youngster Old Man. All one word, but we are doing a World Cup preview. For all of you that like World Cup soccer, the youngster and I are going to be going group by group, team by team. Don't worry, it's not going to be a 3-hour show. It's going to be rather quick, but we are going to do a World Cup preview. Back to you, youngster. Yeah, so like today's show for Go Big or Go Home, we're recording this, what is today, June 11th, I believe, on a Monday. But so, like today's show, we plan on keeping it, I think, anyway, quicker because there is honestly not a ton of, earth-shattering news. You say not a ton? There's like nothing going on, youngster. Like absolutely nothing. There's some stuff to report on, but there's like nothing going on. Oh, yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Like I said, I don't even get into baseball. This is kind of like, as a sports person, we do radio shows, we do podcasts, all these things. It's kind of like our vacation right now. Yeah. So there's like, unless something major comes out, I mean, the CFL's starting. The Canadian Football League starts this Thursday. Woohoo! I didn't even know. Yeah. Johnny Football is playing up there. So, I mean, we are going to do an XFL show. Again, find us on Twitter. We're going to do an XFL show. But as far as like major sports, NBA done, NHL done, NFL, nothing much going on in the NFL right now. So, yeah, there is absolutely nothing going on in sports. All right, show's over. All right, everyone, have a good day. Kidding, we've got a few things to touch on. The first thing that I wanted to mention, we talked about it the last few weeks on this show, baseball, softball for the Big Ten. Softball had 0 teams. Softball had 5 teams from the Big Ten go to the NCAA tournament. 0 of them made it out of the regional to the super regional round. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Again, if you want to check that out, check us out on thegruelingtruth.net or on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan, all one word. It has all of our shows that we've basically ever done, at least in recent history. But so softball, 0 teams from the Big Ten made super regionals. Baseball, there were 4 teams in the Big Ten that made the NCAA tournament. One of them got through the regional, and it was the host team, Minnesota, who won the Big Ten tournament, had the best year in the Big Ten, got to play Oregon State in the second round, and at the Super Regional, and I believe Oregon State hosted that, I think. I guess don't quote me, Troy, or listeners, but I think Minnesota was the number 14 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. Oregon State was 3. So you think about it like March Madness, 116 plays, and you have 2 play 15, you have 3 play 14 in that first round. That's basically what baseball got down to this past week. And so the number 3 team, Oregon State, beat Minnesota, the number 14, I believe, if I remember correctly. They beat them in the first 2 games. It was basically a best out of 3 series, and Oregon State won both. So that ends Minnesota's baseball season. That ends the Big Ten's contention for anything when it comes to either softball or baseball. So that's over with. And now it's like I still have shifts, and I've shared with everyone on this show a couple weeks ago that Land of 10, the site that I write for, solely Big Ten stuff, they're shutting down at the end of June. So that's it for me. But until the end of June, I'm still working there, doing shifts. And right now it's basically, hey, recruiting thing. Hey, recruiting thing. Hey, that recruit did this. Hey, that recruit did that. That's what we're reporting on. So basically a bunch of recruiting stuff, honestly. But there's also one other thing that I wanted to touch on, and that was John Beilein as well. But I'll get to that later to end the show. Again, it's going to be a quicker show in general, but a couple recruiting things that I wanted to bring up. And I know that it's June. And so to say, hey, this team got this 3-star guy, that's nice. And this is all for basically the class of 2019. So that isn't even for, any recruiting stuff going on now is basically all for 2019. It's not even for this upcoming fall. But I wanted to mention it because it is big news, at least if you're going to pay attention to recruiting, that Northwestern got a transfer quarterback, Hunter Johnson, from Clemson. That was today, actually earlier today, as we're recording this. He was a former 5-star quarterback recruit, signed at Clemson. He was in the class of 2017, so I think he was going to be a junior this year. But so since, he's not a graduate transfer, he has to sit out the 2018 season so that he can play in 2019. We also talked about that a couple weeks ago, either a week or 2 weeks ago, Troy and I did, about how, coaches can get up and leave. They don't have to sit a year. Should players be able to do that? Again, if you want to check out any of our former shows, go to thegrowingtruth.net, look up Go Big or Go Home, or follow us on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan. But so this basically some sites had him the number 1 ranked quarterback in his class. Some sites had him the 2nd ranked quarterback. Obviously a big get for Northwestern. Northwestern has a senior quarterback coming back this year in Clayton Thorson. But so if there is any individual recruiting news to point out as of the last month, basically, it's that Northwestern is getting this kid for the future, which I think is cool. I think it shows that Pat Fitzgerald can recruit. I think it goes to show that there are certain schools like Northwestern where you think, okay, all these teams get, a bunch of 3-stars, realistically. They're not the highly coveted 5-star guys, even 4-stars. A team like Northwestern will get a couple every year. And same goes for teams like Minnesota. That's the only other. I guess I'll turn it back to you, Troy. Not necessarily do you care at all, but is there any take that you have on this, former number 1 ranked quarterback in the class going to Clemson, figuring out that, darn, he's not going to make it at Clemson because other 5-star quarterbacks have made it there and surpassed him on the depth chart. So he transfers to Northwestern, of all programs. It's interesting to me because it's Northwestern.
It's interesting to know why he went to Northwestern. This might be a kid that actually cares about academics.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. I know the name. I mean, he was a highly touted quarterback coming out of high school.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I was saying for those that are loyal listeners. When I recruited and when I advised high school students being recruited, just because you think you're the big fish this year, you're going to be the small fish next year because there's going to be a bigger fish that they go out there to try to catch.
Yeah,
and that's
Clemson,
what happened here.
Not to cut you off for a second, Troy, but Clemson just got the number 1 overall recruit for this year, and it's a quarterback who's supposed to be absolutely ridiculous. And they also have the guy who led them to the college football playoff a year ago returning. So it's like you had 3 5-star quarterbacks on that roster, a lot like Georgia has had that issue going into this year, and people are wondering when some quarterback's going to transfer out of there. I loved the quarterback who got hurt at the end of last year or the start of last year for Georgia. I love that guy. I think he's going to play in the NFL. and yet he lost his job to another 5-star guy who stepped in for him and kept the job. And now
that's
they just
the way college recruiting works.
Another 5-star quarterback this year. So he's, third on the depth chart now, potentially. So people are wondering, okay, where he's going to go. Just in general, I think teams like Northwestern, teams like Minnesota, teams like even Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, your Wisconsins that, can finish not even 8-4, 9-3, but a perfect 12-0. They can get, quote unquote lucky and land a kid like this. So I think it's interesting. You also bring up a great point that, if you're going to go to Northwestern for football, I think you have to care a little bit about academics. I completely agree with you there.
Well, yeah, you don't just pick up the phone and say, hey, coach, I'm coming to play football. You've actually got to transfer there and be accepted.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not easy. I mean, and, the thing about the Big Ten, it has been, and I don't remember when it was last publicized about it, but there are some schools in the Big Ten where admissions requirements are a little more hefty than some of these SEC schools.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the only reason why they don't get top-name recruits, but their admissions requirements, like even Wisconsin, I mean, that was a big deal about Wisconsin basketball a few years back. Some think that that's part of the reason why Bo Ryan stepped away, is that the admissions requirements were a little steeper than other schools. And, hey, at some point you have to realize the amount of kids that actually play in the NBA is small compared to the overall student body. And you can't make exceptions for athletes. You just can't. Because once you start doing that, you're playing favoritism. Then you got to lower the requirements for everyone. And then all of a sudden it does hurt your academic reputation. I'm okay with that. I've never argued admission requirements at any school, and I never tried to get involved in that conversation. Because, again, I sat on the side of the sideline as a coach at Upper Iowa. Admission requirements weren't terrible. They were probably in the middle of the pack. But you still, the bottom line is you're going to college to go to school. Now, I know these 5-star guys, they dream of playing NFL football, right?
Right.
But you're only one knee injury, one shoulder injury, 5 concussions away from never playing in the NFL. Then what are you going to do? You're going to learn how to spell your name? Because you have to have an education. Or you're going to go work, as a blue-collar worker, which there's nothing wrong with that. My son does that. My son's not a school guy. He works as a blue-collar worker. Nothing wrong with that. But these 5-star guys aren't even thinking about education, and that's why your scholarship is there for you to go to school. And that's what it's there for. You are getting your school paid for. You are privileged then to play football or basketball or hockey, whatever it is. But I think people have to realize that when you get an athletic scholarship, you are allowed to play football, but you're getting your school paid for. You're not getting your football paid for. I mean, that's the bottom line. So I'm going to circle back here, though, about the sitting out a year. And when you look at this is when I look at the rule, and I don't care about that rule, Kevin, because this will actually help him. He doesn't lose any eligibility. There's already a starting quarterback coming back. He will be the man. He'll get to learn. How many times have you heard me on our Cleveland Market show say, learn the playbook? Learn the playbook. This kid comes in. He gets to learn the playbook at Northwestern. And he can still participate in practice. No, I don't think he can. I'm not sure on the rule. On the train, because it's not a red shirt. I don't think he can be involved in team activity. But he can still learn the playbook.
Sure. Yeah. No question about it. Sorry, you go ahead. You finish.
I was going to say, in this case, this is a great situation for this kid. But I don't think he can participate in team activity. I'll have to look it up and just to verify that. But I think when you have to sit out that year, I don't believe that you can participate even in practice because it's not the same as a red shirt. It's a transfer year, so you can't participate in team activities. I believe that's the rule. But, again, I've been out of coaching for a while. I'm not 100% up to date on that. If there's a listener that knows, find us on Twitter, TroyRobert967, at Kid Cunny, or at Youngster Old Man. I'm going to look it up, though, because I'm intrigued by it. I need to know. But yeah. I like this kid going to Northwestern. Good for him. And, again, he's probably a little bit has to do with academics. So good for him. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, I would guess that you're right, that he can't, compete in practice and get reps that way. But to be on the sideline, I'm pretty sure you can be on the sideline as a transfer on game day and be able to be there with coaches, with your teammates, with the quarterbacks, with the starting quarterback who's done really well at Northwestern. He's not phenomenal, Clayton Thorson, but he does well. You can't just throw weight in the box and say, okay, now you're screwed. You can't beat us. Last year, they went 9-3. They had a dynamic running back who's in the NFL who set program records there for rushing yards in a career, stuff like that. And you couldn't just completely bottle them up by, slamming the running game down and saying beat us through the air, because Clayton Thorson can do that. I want to mention the name Alex Hornibrook out there, Troy. But in any case, regarding that, because you
really had to bring that name up,
Troy. There's so much, man, with Wisconsin. Actually, this is another thing. It brings me to a different topic. I'll leave. Oh,
there we go. There goes our short show, because now you had to get me all worked up. And now you're going to bring up something with Wisconsin. This show's going to turn into be like 3 hours now.
Yeah, no. Yeah, short topic that I just remembered here. Let me just jot this down here for a second. Okay, I'll remember with that. But so yeah, I guess that's it with that. Again, Northwestern for the future, their quarterback situation. You've got Clayton Thorson coming back as a senior this year, and then you've got this number 1 ranked quarterback walking in the door, being able to sit and learn for a year. I think Northwestern is going to be just fine in the recent or 4 years to come. But so the other thing I want to mention too is Minnesota yesterday, and I only bring this up because I was reporting on it. But Minnesota got 5 guys to commit on the same day for the class of 2019. I think that's interesting. There were a bunch of 3-star guys. But so you see PJ Fleck getting into his second year at Minnesota, being able to get his first full true recruiting cycle in. And so now is when you're going to start seeing guys that actually want to play for him, not for the old coach, So I think that, and I'm not, pointing out any of these 5 kids individually, but as a whole, it's still Minnesota football. You're still getting 3-star recruits, even though it is PJ Fleck. I think they've got 1 committed right now for the class of 2019, either 1 or 2. I think it's 1. But still, the bulk of guys are 3-star guys, and it just goes back to my original thinking that whether you're Northwestern, whether you're Purdue, whether you're Indiana, Illinois, Rutgers, Minnesota, Michigan State even, Wisconsin for the most part, it's built on a ton of 3-star guys. And so the difference is you have an established coach who knows exactly what he wants to do in a conference where he knows he can do that well, recruit the guys that he can do that well with, and I think it all comes back to coaching. I think that if PJ Fleck is really not that good of a coach, then he's going to bring in the 3-star caliber guys that Minnesota gets every year, no matter what, no matter who the coach is, basically until something seriously changes. Minnesota will be fundamentally built on 3-star recruits. But in the end, if PJ Fleck's system works and he knows what he's doing and he knows how to delegate to his assistants and he recruits the players that work exactly in the system that can work in the Big Ten well, then you're going to see Minnesota have 9-3 seasons and a 10-2 season from time to time. And if you can keep a coaching staff together for a while and keep your system rolling, you can turn into a Wisconsin who doesn't have a bunch of 5-stars across the board, sometimes like Penn State is doing now. Ohio State, Michigan obviously come to mind as well historically. But it's all about the coaching, and it's about the system that has Wisconsin as the top team that doesn't get a bunch of 5-stars left and right. And you have to respect the hell out of Wisconsin for that. I'm an Ohio State football fan, but I can absolutely respect what Wisconsin football has done in the last, 20-plus years. Being able to not just go to Florida and get whoever you want, go to California, get whoever you want, let alone recruit the state of Ohio well, like Ohio State does. They can go anywhere and get anyone, basically. And yet, so if you have a 10-2 season, it's like, what's wrong with you? And for Wisconsin, it's like, well, we got the best guys in Wisconsin, and we hope to get the 3rd best player out of Michigan. because he fits our system well. We have to recruit against Michigan, which is not fantastic, but it can be done. It's been done. It is being done by Paul Chryst. And so it just got me thinking to what the Big Ten is and what coaching is, what college football is that unless you're Alabama's, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Miami, those insane, highly respected programs that get a bunch of 5 stars, you're basically built on a bunch of 3 stars, and if your coach works and knows what he's really doing, then he'll turn those 3 stars into guys that play like 5 stars, basically.
The point you bring up, youngster, is the reason I say the Big Ten is the best football conference because of coaching.
Yeah.
The Big Ten, you have very good coaches. You have some duds. You'll have duds, but you look at a Paul Chryst. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought he could do what he's done? And you brought it, you hit it on the head. He's got a system. He knows what he wants to do. He's going to pound the ball and get big, beefy linemen. And he's going to have guys in Hornibrook being quarterback. I mean, the guys, he can learn, he can develop. He's never going to be a pro quarterback. But Paul Chryst doesn't care because he's going to have an ample cupboard full of running backs. And it doesn't matter if it's number 1 running back, the number 2, the number 3, the number 4 guy. All 4 of those guys are going to be able to get 1,000 yards. That's what he wants. And the way that he does it, he gets the big burly guys up front. And he keeps sending them to the NFL. And now, why wouldn't I want to go to Wisconsin? And the thing is, but you look at recruiting the offensive line, not even that many 4s. A lot of them are 3. But he finds the linemen that like to run block, that he thinks can develop into very run blocking linemen. And
I think we just lost Troy there. But as his phone was going away. But yeah, that's what Wisconsin does, is they get your 3-star linemen. It's not even as though Wisconsin gets all of these insanely talented offensive tackles that are, completely supposed to be a quarterback's blindside protector for years to come. It's not even necessarily that. It's that Wisconsin gets the right 3-star guy. And I think Jonathan Taylor, and this is me segueing to a different conversation, different topic to end the show. And I want to somewhat draw this out for a second because I know Troy's calling back in right now. But to transfer it to Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor as a recruit, I mean, I'll look it up right now. He was not supposed to be this unbelievable, ridiculous back, and yet Jonathan Taylor was that a year ago. And part of it is because of what Wisconsin has as an offensive line. Because if you have Peyton Manning as your quarterback and you can't keep him upright, he's going to get hurt. He's not going to be effective. If you have Peyton Manning sitting back there all day long, Peyton Manning will do work for you, and he'll kill it. The same thing goes for the running back position. If you don't make holes for whoever your running back is, they're not going to do too much for you. Jonathan Taylor, I'm looking up now, as a recruit, he was a 3-star guy, the number 24 running back in his class. So number 8 player in the state of New Jersey. I don't know who the first 7 players were, but I would guess that Jonathan Taylor had a better, more productive season than whoever the top 7 players were in the state of New Jersey a year ago. And that was his freshman year. But at Wisconsin, in the right system, knowing what Paul Chryst wants to do, having the offensive line that Wisconsin had a year ago, we'll talk about Wisconsin later on. But as a whole, Jonathan Taylor proved to be really good. And so I'm sure if you put any, random 3-star running back in there, I don't think that they would have the exact success that Jonathan Taylor had a year ago. But I think Paul Chryst knows that he's not even, and that's Wisconsin, honestly. Wisconsin, to me, if they really heavily targeted insanely talented running backs that were your 4-star, even 5-star running backs, I think they honestly could probably pluck one once every other year and say, we're Wisconsin, we're going to have a fantastic offensive line. I know you're extremely talented. I know Alabama's offering you, and Ohio State and Clemson and USC are offering you, but we're Wisconsin, and we're going to have a better offensive line than anyone out there. You know, Wisconsin can make that claim, basically, and nobody can really dispute it. We'll talk more about Wisconsin football when the season nears, but as a whole, Jonathan Taylor, it just goes to show you that if you recruit the right kind of three-star guy, you know, whether you're Mississippi State, whether you're Iowa, whether you're Wisconsin, whether you're Minnesota, whether you're Oregon State, you know, if you have the right coach doing the right things, the right system, you know, no matter the league, Big Ten, SEC, Pac-12, whatever, they'll pan out for you. So I know Troy's back now. You can finish your point, Troy, but I made kind of the segue over to Jonathan Taylor because that's the last topic I wanted to mention too was not exactly that Jonathan Taylor was a three-star running back and did really well. It means, you know, that Paul Chryst knows what he's doing. Offensive line's important. There's something else I want to bring up with Taylor as well that's happened over the last week, but I'll let you finish your thought.
No, I'm not sure where I cut out, so you know, I talked enough. I'm an old man. I don't need to sit there and repeat myself. I'm good.
Okay. Jonathan Taylor, I need to look up exactly what it was here. But Jonathan Taylor, I think it was some point last week. I'm looking it up right now because I'm interested, again, to see here. He has the second best odds of winning the Heisman Trophy this year. Jonathan Taylor does. At Wisconsin sophomore running back. What's your initial thought on that, Troy, that Wisconsin sophomore running back who did what he did a year ago has the second best odds to win the Heisman Trophy? I know, you know, you can say whatever you want because it's June, you know, but it's interesting to me that Jonathan Taylor has the second best odds in the country to win the Heisman Trophy next year. Obviously, they anticipate him not only having big numbers, but they anticipate Wisconsin having a really good season. They also know that Wisconsin's got three guys. This is, I guess, more information than I wanted to let out, but Wisconsin, you know, according to mock drafts right now that are obviously insanely early, but they can have three offensive linemen go in the first round. Like people are saying that.
Yes, they can. Yeah, if Jonathan Taylor would have started the year last year, Kevin, he may have been in New York. I mean, he's that good. I mean, and the thing is, he has a good offensive line in front of him. So, but yeah, I mean, that's great. But to me, I just want him to go out and produce yards. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care about all the hype, the Heisman hype. He's going to get his touches. He's going to get his yards. He's got big, beefy guys in front of him. He should be. He should be up there as a preseason favorite. But again, you haven't even played a game yet. The thing is, I follow Wisconsin football. I know Wisconsin football. Yeah, he's going to get his yards. He probably will be able to get close to 1,200 yards, maybe 1,400 yards. I'm going to say he's going to average at least 100 a game because early you got to remember the early season cupcakes. Yeah, he's probably only going to play a half, maybe even only a quarter, and may only get like 85 or 90 yards. I mean, because those cupcakes are cupcakes for a reason. So, no, but that's fine. I mean, he can be mentioned as a Heisman candidate. I just hope it doesn't go to his head. And to be honest, from what I know about Paul Chryst and the way that team is, I think that if he starts getting a big head, number 2 running back, you're going to step in and play. Sorry. There you go. The guy is just as good. So that's the way that it works. But he's a good running back, and you know he's going to get his yards. You know he's going to get his touches. Record-wise, I'm not going to get into predicting what Wisconsin's going to do next year. We got the Big Ten preview show probably in the middle of August, and then we'll talk more about what I think is going to happen with Wisconsin football. Great year last year. And offensively, they're not going to change their tune as to who they are. But as my thing here is a little bit of are you going to get better at quarterback?
I think he cut out again. But I heard him talking about the quarterback position. And yeah, that's what it's going to come down to for Wisconsin ultimately. And again, like he mentioned, we'll talk more in depth about Wisconsin. We'll talk more in depth about every single one of these Big Ten teams once it's August. We're not going to get into in-depth team previews and talking about the depth chart and talking about what we predict their record to be, talking about their schedule, how that, pans out game by game by game. We'll do that in August. It's June. We've got, realistically probably a couple months until that. Mid-August, maybe, at the start of August, we can do a few teams. But in any case, got a couple months before we seriously dive into Wisconsin and Purdue and Rutgers and Ohio State and, going through everything with those teams. That's a couple months away. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor, would it get to his head? I would say no. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, at least for this week's show, Troy, is it was also interesting to me with this Heisman talk and the odds coming out for the first time that J.K. Dobbins, running back for Ohio State, 20-1 odds. He's like seventh highest odds. That's, whatever. He had a really good season a year ago. But tied with him is Shea Patterson of Michigan, the quarterback from Ole Miss, who transferred in. He already has the same odds as J.K. Dobbins, same odds as Clemson starting quarterback, same odds as Oklahoma starting quarterback, same odds as Trace McSorley from Penn State. He's got the same odds to win the Heisman Trophy. That just goes to show you what kind of guy Michigan is supposed to be getting here.
Yeah, he's going to be the man, and you've got an offense that Harbaugh, he will run the ball. He'll try to run the ball, but now he's got a quarterback that can toss it.
Yeah.
To me, and people can get on Harbaugh all they want. His antics and, comments and his press conferences. But when it comes to coaching, I like Harbaugh. I think he got the short end of the stick in the NFL, and part of it's his own doing. But I think as a college coach, he's a good coach, and he's going to adapt to what he has, and he's got an NFL caliber quarterback. And so, do you think he's going to have that guy handed off 30 times a game? If that's what the defense is going to give him, yes, that's what he'll do. But I will guarantee that when he's watching film, he's going to find a way to let Patterson throw the ball. Why wouldn't you? You have the ability to do it. Last year you had nothing but quarterback problems, and so, yeah, you had to rely heavily on your run game. But Harbaugh is – I don't want to call him, a genius coach, but Harbaugh is a guy that's going to adjust to what the game is bringing to him. I like Harbaugh as a coach. So these people that get on him, that's fine. It's like anything. It's not just football. It's not just Jim Harbaugh. It's anything. When people are good, people are also going to find things to complain about. Or I guess I can say it this way. It's a podcast. They find things to piss and moan about. Do I like what Harbaugh does in his comments, in his media antics? No, I don't. But when he's coaching, I've got to give credit where credit is due. Jim Harbaugh is a very good coach. And he's going to find a way to use Patterson, and that could lead to big numbers. It could lead to very big numbers for Michigan. And if they've got a running game to take some pressure off the quarterback, yeah, he should be probably mentioned in the Heisman race because he's going to put up numbers because Harbaugh will let him if it's there. If it's not there, he's going to run the ball. That's what Harbaugh will do. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'll say this very quickly before getting into Harbaugh for a second. There are a lot of really talented quarterbacks this year just looking at this again. The odds, like next year, for example, or this coming season, Alabama's got a really strong quarterback. Georgia's got a really strong quarterback. Oregon's got a strong quarterback. Arizona does. Georgia. I already mentioned Georgia. Auburn's got a good one. Washington's got a good one. Me being an Ohio State fan, I know they're going to have a good quarterback play as well. He's not up here for, top odds. But
is Wisconsin in there on the list?
Let me take a look, Troy. Let me see if I can find.
What are Honeybrook's odds to win the Heisman?
They're not 100-1 or better. So
he's not even 100-1.
No, you could win a lot of money though. If you put him on him, then he wins.
I got better places to put my money, like DraftKings. So yeah, I'm going to pass on that bet.
Ohio State's got a defensive player that's 80-1, Troy. But Hornybrook not even 100-1.
I wouldn't put my money on a defensive player, even if the guy is like Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just hard as a defensive player to win the Heisman.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a dominating player. You can get 5 sacks a game. Still, you're not going to be like the favorite to win the Heisman. I mean, we just got to be real about the Heisman. It really should be renamed Best Offensive Player, because I know many years as the Heisman was given out, and now we've really went off. This short show has turned into a regular length show, but you always find something to get me going. There's many times when I look at the Heisman Trophy, and there's defensive players that were more dominant, that changed the scope of a game than some of these offensive players, because we've talked about this with NFL caliber quarterbacks. You're a man amongst men, and you can make little mistakes in college and still get away with it. On the defensive side of the ball, you can change the outcome of games, and you can as a quarterback, don't get me wrong. But I go back in my many years of being an old man and just looking at some of these Heisman races and like, man, that there were defensive players that were flat out dominant that changed the scope of a game or the way that the game is game planned. I don't think that ever gets taken into consideration, Kevin. When you have a dominating defensive player in college and you have to specifically game plan around that guy, to me, that is a valuable player. He could get 0 tackles in a game. But what have you done all week? You have changed the opponent's attack. You've changed what the opponent normally does because you've got this dominant defensive player. You could get me going on this for hours, how I think defensive players should get more consideration for the Heisman Trophy. That's all I got.
Heisman Trophy, MVP awards, NFL, NBA, it doesn't matter. To me, it's all garbage. Because Heisman Trophy especially, all of them are garbage. But Heisman Trophy, you have guys in the South, like Alabama's whoever, voting for the Heisman Trophy. What, they're going to stay up every single Saturday night till midnight and watch Stanford's running back, who has the top odds, by the way. They're going to watch every single Stanford game and say, you know what, I'll give Bryce Love the Heisman Trophy as opposed to Alabama's running back. You know, whoever Alabama's number 1 running back is, whoever Georgia's number 1 running back is, whoever Clemson's number 1 quarterback is, they're going to have huge numbers. They're going to have a great season. Their team's going to have a great season. There you go. There's your Heisman Trophy winner. I'd be really shocked if Bryce Love wins the Heisman Trophy. Last year, he put up huge numbers. It's Stanford, which, by the way, to finally, I guess, go to Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh did really well at Stanford. That's how you know you're a good coach, if you do really well at Stanford football. If you do really well in the NFL and you take your team with Colin Kaepernick to the Super Bowl and almost win it, you're a pretty good coach. Jim Harbaugh knows how to coach. But going back to the odds for the 2018 Heisman Trophy, Jonathan Taylor's number 2, Bryce Love, the running back from Stanford, the number 1. I'd be really surprised if Bryce Love won. I really would, because it's Stanford's running back. It's Stanford. He's going to have huge numbers. So will Jonathan Taylor. What's Stanford going to do that Wisconsin's not going to do? Stanford's going to go 12-0 and win the Pac-12 and be the number 2 team in the country going in the college football playoff? I highly doubt it. It's going to go to, if Wisconsin goes 12-1 and wins the Big Ten, yeah, Jonathan Taylor can absolutely win the Heisman Trophy. But Alabama's quarterback, Clemson's quarterback, Georgia's running back, Georgia's quarterback, those guys are going to, if Ohio State's J.K. Dobbins has a fantastic year on the ground and they make the college football playoff, that's a guy to look for. It's always a quarterback or running back who's on a top 10 team. That's the Heisman Trophy. And in the NBA, it's a guy that can't be LeBron. It can't be LeBron because expectations are through the roof. It's got to be someone who has the best or second best record in the NBA and who has a phenomenal statistic this season. Like James Harden, like Russell Westbrook a couple of years ago. It's just garbage, you know, and the NFL basically give it to the top quarterback on a top 5 team, basically. I mean, it's very hard for a running back to do it. You almost have to get 2,000 yards. if you're a running back. Todd Gurley had a phenomenal season, completely changed the Rams around. That partially was Sean McVay as well. But Todd Gurley was fantastic a year ago. Completely changed the way the Rams were 2 years ago to last year. Did he win the MVP? No. Again, it's a quarterback from a top team. That's just MVP voting. So I'm in 100% agreement with you there. But, yeah, I guess to end it, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, what he's done at Michigan, they were a bad team basically for the last few years until he got there. And he immediately changed them into at least a contender to make themselves a contender in the Big Ten, at least. Over the last year or two, they haven't necessarily been fantastic, but they've still been good. Still going 8-4, 9-3. Michigan wasn't even doing that before Harbaugh for the last 5 years. So he knows what he's doing, and he's got a quarterback, he's got a defense, he's got a running game, he's got talent on the outside. Michigan's going to be really good this year. They are. But he showcased that at Stanford. He showcased that with the Niners with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick's not your Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, who's getting another chance in the NFL because, God forbid, he kneeled during the national anthem. If he had real talent, him kneeling wouldn't make a difference. Just throwing that out there. But in any case, Jim Harbaugh, really good coach, and your Heisman Trophy winner this year is going to be a top quarterback or running back for a top finishing team. If Wisconsin finishes 12-1 and has a shot at the college football playoff and Jonathan Taylor runs for almost 2,000 yards like he did a year ago he ran for 1,800. If he does that again, then yeah, he'll be up there. He'll be in New York. He'll be sitting right there with chances to win. That's all I got, Troy. We actually finished within 50 minutes potentially here, barring the end of the show. But I'm done. I'm ready to call it. If you are.
Yeah. Again, short show. Nothing going on in the world of sports, right? The youngster and old man can find a way to talk for at least an hour. That's the way that it works. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed the show. From here on out, throughout the summer, it could be interesting as to what we talk about. A little bit of recruiting things that'll lead to other things on the tree branch. But for the youngster, I am the old man. Make sure you find us on Twitter. Troy Robert 967 at Kid Cunny, and then, of course, our show handle at Youngster Old Man, all one word. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good day, everyone.